Speakeasy, we like to say our mission statement to begin with, which is we are a progressive community sharing a message of love and engaging in conversations. That's what sets us apart. We have a conversation after we have a talk, and everybody can raise their hand and talk about how the conversation affects them, that promote well-being and spiritual growth. And we say that together. Love is our religion, care is our currency, and peace is our goal. So it's super simple. Anybody can come under that umbrella and say, yeah, I understand love, I understand care, I understand peace. Those are things that I could stand for. Those are things that I could strengthen in my own life. What we like to do when we're in community to start off with is to celebrate. So that's one of our other special sauces, is that we really like to celebrate each other and whatever's happening in our lives. So does anybody have anything that they want to celebrate?
I got asked to do a couple of speaking gigs.
Yes! That's great! Good job! Anybody else?
So what?
Days. It's so interesting, you know, because sometimes we don't talk before we collaborate, and this to see, like, that's a perfect song for today.
Yay!
Yeah, of course, you know. So today we're talking about defenselessness. Actually, the whole month we're going to be talking about defenselessness, because we're moving through the characteristics of a good teacher of God. And so defenselessness is the theme of this month, but we're going to go into the book and the concepts of the book. But defenselessness in the book, there's only one paragraph. We use A Course in Miracles. It's a great book to jump off of. And there's only one paragraph under the section called defenselessness. And it says that defenselessness is actually simple. That is really simple. It's really easy to completely surrender. You know, when we think about that, it takes a great degree of energy, of passion, of resources to be in defense, you know, to be against something. And so defenselessness, on the other hand, you know, lets things just go easily. And God's teachers get to learn how to be simple. When I say God's teachers, that sounds like an interesting terminology, but really God is synonymous with love. So love's teachers get to learn how to be simple. You know, how to be really simple. We hear about this in the 12-step too, when they say, keep it simple, sweetie. So we find ourselves, and if we find ourselves defending something, it is a sure sign that there's inherent weakness in that thing. You know, because nothing real can be threatened, and the truth can take care of itself. Isn't that interesting, that the truth can take care of itself? That it doesn't need PR, that it doesn't need any defense for it. It's just true is true through and through. And we get to see that in, you know, some of our way showers, specifically Jesus, you know, when he's walking to the cross, you know, he's not like spitting and screaming and convulsing, he's in peace, he's in defenselessness. And so if it can happen for one teacher of love, it can be available to all teachers of love. So how do we navigate those rougher patches with grace? I will tell you a story about how I did it without grace. Oh my God, I had this horrific experience, but I really got the lesson, and I did it without grace. And what happened was, I was in California, and my husband and I were planning to move to Chicago, and we had our house on the market, and we got the phone call that my stepmother was very sick, and she was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and we got the call, like, come home. So I flew home, and I was so upset, I was so angry. You know, I didn't even realize how angry I was that my stepmother was dying. You know, my mom was my mom for the first 14 years of my life. My stepmother was my mother for the 25 years of my life. She became my mother. And she hugged like nobody hugged. Like I knew that when she passed, like I would lose so much. So when I got home, I was so angry. And my father said to me, Maureen, you know, she's dying within the days, you know, so you're going to have to go back to Chicago. What would you like to take of hers to Chicago? And I said, well, I really like that bracelet, you know, that she had with the rose clasp. I could give that to my, you know, my child when she grows up, and maybe a pair of earrings for Billy. My dad said, well, you know, her niece Molly already claimed the bracelet. And I said, well, fuck Molly. That's the point where I was really graceful. And my father looked at me and he was like, this is not your best hour. And I was like, maybe not. But I went home with that bracelet to California. You know, I had already been practicing the laws of love. I already knew the mathematics. There was a place within me who understood this was not the best way to to navigate the situation. But I laid that all aside, and I called my daughter and I said, here, these are earrings that you got from your grandmother, and we're not going to wear only at special occasions, we're going to wear them. Let's get ready for church. I put on my bracelet, and I go off to church because I'm a good church lady. And when I come home, I take off the bracelet, and I go into the back room, the armoire, where the jewelry box is. I take out the jewelry box, I open it up, I go to put the bracelet in, and all of the jewelry is gone. All of it's gone. And you ever get robbed, like your car, and you're like, wait, where's that car? I know it was here. And it was like a ripple in time in my mind. I was like, what is happening? Like, it didn't make any sense. And then slowly the information started to creep in. Oh yeah, your house is for sale. You had a showing today. People were in your home, and it's gone. And I felt so violated. So I went outside, and at this time, again, I was a spiritual practitioner, so I had tools to lean into, and I went outside and I sat down in meditation, because I knew where to go, I knew where to go for a solution. So I go outside and I sit down and I say, Holy Spirit, I feel so violated and so angry right now. And then I hear this voice that says, nothing has been stolen. And I was like, what are you, crazy? Like, are you kidding me? Like, everything's gone. And it said again, nothing has been stolen. And it kept repeating this insane information. And I was like, you're wrong. I'm right. It's all gone. And so I finally said, could you give me a reinterpretation on the situation? And I heard, that engagement ring that your husband purchased for you. Like, that was just a symbol of his love for you. But that love is still there. The symbol's gone. The charm bracelet that your grandmother had when she traveled all over the world and her love for travel, that's still there. But the bracelet's gone. The bracelet's the least important thing. The bracelet, the earrings, the ring, those were just symbols that you would need to remind yourself of what was really true. Do you need symbols to remind you of love? And I was like, oh man, that's good stuff. And after I recognized the truth that needed no defense, I didn't even fill out a police report. I was like, that was worth the classroom, I'm really done with that. Every once in a while I would think back because I would remember a specific piece and be like, oh, that's gone too. Oh, that's gone too. But for the most part, I got my lesson. And my sisters, I have 5 older sisters, I called them, I told them what happened. And within a week, because form follows consciousness, the form began to arrive again at my door. They all went through their jewelry boxes, started sending me nicer jewelry than I had to begin with. And I used that story to explain the temporal nature of form and the truth of love that is unthreatenable. And people, sometimes when I share that story, would say, did you ever send that bracelet back to Molly? And for like 2 years, I was like, no, I haven't done it yet. I don't know what I was waiting for. And I was like, what? I keep getting this. Of course I'm supposed to do this. So I sent her the bracelet to her sister. Her sister gave it to her on Christmas. And it was what she deserved. And it wasn't that I didn't deserve the bracelet, but it's just that I didn't need. I didn't need the bracelet like maybe she needed the bracelet. I had no need for it. I had already gotten my blessing. So when we talk about defenselessness, talking about this grace period that God has for us, this pregnant pause, this affluent, impeccable state of grace that is so generous. And Rumi gave us the idea of this grace period. He says, beyond all wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field, and I'll meet you there. And it says, where souls lie down in the grass and the world is too full to talk about. I love that idea. But then when we're so filled up on the grace of God, that all the words, that all the ideas fall away. And we just lay defenselessly in this grass of grace. And we have no need to do anything else but just be in that state of grace, beyond right and wrong. That's heaven on earth. If we ever thought about what heaven on earth is, that's heaven on earth. It's not a place we go to. It's not a place that we build. It's a place that is accessible to us right now as we continue to let go of all of our separate perceptions. So, to imagine if you go through this week to experience that unadulterated peace. When you think about the word unadulterated, to adultery is to add something else to the party, right? So unadulterated is the pure, it's the unblemished, and that's what we're each deserving of. That's what we actually each are, to have that slice of unadulterated defenselessness, unblemished innocence. That's what we're going to be looking at this week. This month, actually. And this week we're going into a section called the meaning of miracles. And the meaning of miracles in the first chapter has a section called Wholeness Spirit. And the miracle, it says in this section that the miracle is just like the body. That the miracle and the body are both teaching aids. That they're just learning tools. And it's interesting because we get so attached to our bodies. Not just our bodies, but the body of our life, which is all our trinkets and our treasures and our relationships. We get very in ownership of them. We say, this is mine, and we partial them out. We get partial to certain things. So it's saying that the body and the miracle are both being used for the same exact thing, connection and communication. And what are we looking to connect and communicate? Love. That's it. So once once we've made the connection in love and we've communicated love, the form isn't necessary anymore. And we've come to this awareness, and then the body and even the miracle become sort of this silly tool. You know? It's almost like you have 2 tin cans and a thing of string, and you're trying to make connections with each other, and God's like, you've always been connected. You've always been connected to me. You've always been connected to each other. You don't need to have these, you don't need to seek for connections. We are connections. It says, when spirit's original state of direct communication is reached, neither the body nor the miracle serves any purpose. So each of us are heir to direct communication. When I say to you, I went to my internal teacher, like each of us are heir to that internal teacher where we can have a communication with the divine. But while you believe in the body, you get to choose between being a channel for love or being a channel for fear. That's it. And you might not always be in remembrance of this, as I forget sometimes too, like in that story with Molly. And so during those times when you forget, you might try and eradicate your own power. You might try and destroy the medium of communication. But you can never destroy your potential. You can make yourself lifeless corpse, you can run from it, you can hide from it, you can surrender your power, but you can never abolish it. You could fall asleep to it, you could beat it into submission, but your potential is still your potential. And so I like to think about, when thinking about that, I like to think about when an adult is playing peekaboo with a baby, and the adult's saying, peekaboo, and then the baby's like, oh, and then the baby closes its eyes, and the baby thinks it's invisible. And the adult's looking at the baby like, I can still see you, you know what I mean? But the baby really thinks it's hiding. And this is how we are with God. We close our eyes to God, we shut our eyes to God, and God's like, I can see you, you can never be separate from me. And when we shut our eyes to God, we stop seeing God, and we start seeing the projections of our greatest nightmares. Because we've made ourselves separate from God, so we start to build this case for our guilt and our shame and our unworthiness. But all along, we could open our eyes. And in the state of closing our eyes, we sometimes love to romance our broken stories and our separateness and tell everybody about how we're separate from God in all the ways that we're broken. And we say, that was a time that God forgot me. When he took my stepmother, and he knew that was important to me. And God's like, I didn't forget you. You just had your eyes closed. I was carrying you the whole time, and I was thinking, when is she going to open her freaking eyes? And so it's kind of funny that I really want to blame God for all that goes wrong in the world. But always God is impeccable, always there for us. So that story about the jewelry is just a symbolic reference to maybe get us to recognize what's real, that love is always real, and to recognize that we each already have everything that we need. And in this section, it also says that all talents are shared by all sons of God. And it says, literally, that God is not partial. So we shouldn't be partial. It's unnatural for us to be partial. Partial means existing only in part, incomplete, limited, restricted, imperfect. We are none of these things. We are created as holy individuals. Holy means honest through and through. It means open channels of love. It means being loving towards ourselves and others, and it means yielding towards the plan of God. Not our own little plan, because why would we run with our own plan when God's plan is so much better? So holy, honest, open, loving, and yielding, if that helps you to remember. But the reason we don't do that is because we really do want our separateness, and we really do want to fight for our specialness. So just like the little drop of ocean, it's still everything that the ocean is, but here in this illusion, we start to think that that little drop of ocean, that is us, that is only pure love and pure God, needs to be separate from God. We fear our oneness with God. And so we do this thing where we kind of build a boat, and we honor the boat, and we keep that separation. The boat is the body. And when we get into the boat, we start navigating the current events with God, and we get scared of returning to God. And we don't have to return to God through death. We could return to God just through fearlessness, of saying, you know what, I don't need a boat. I don't need anything. I'm just going to jump in God. I'm going to jump deep in God and be like somebody said this morning, I'm going to be a cork. You know, the thing is with the cork has the ability to be on the current events and be tossed around left and right and be like, fuck, you know? Or the cork has the ability to be tossed around left and right on the current events and go, whee! And that's it. Things will come and go and come and go and come and go a million times. We can guarantee that. This is life. You know, there's ebb and flow. This is the ocean. It would be a very insane man to try and change the ocean. It would be a very insane person to try and orchestrate the ocean. That's not our business. Our business is to be in love with what is. This is not always an easy thing to do, but ultimately, if we're interested in peace, this is what we get to do. So this section goes on to say that not only is this for you to do, but you're also capable of it. That the miracle is a sign of a mind that's chosen to be led by love. And this is, in this book it says, in service to Christ, in Christ's service. So when we see the word Christ, Christ is synonymous with light, in service of being light, in traveling lightly. That's why it can say that defenselessness is easy, because it doesn't take anything. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to hold on to anything. It's a very light way of traveling. And it says that when we do this, the abundance of Christ is the natural result of ones who choose to follow him. And we could rewrite that for metaphysical interpretation, which is the abundance of light is the natural result of one who chooses to follow love. The abundance of light. And I don't know if you have noticed it, but the world is yearning for more light. And you are bringers of light. When we say teachers of God, there's many ways to say that, but one of them is a channel of light. You know, Jesus said, I'm the light of the world, and then said, this and greater things shall you do. So there's pockets in your life right now that are calling for that light. And anytime that we get hung up or strung out on our own broken scenarios, we literally cut ourselves off. We close our eyes to God like that little baby. But unlike that little baby who knows it's playing a game, we forget. We think this isn't a game, this is serious. These are the takeaways. Don't do anything you can't say and do in peace. Like if you can't show up in peace, don't show up. Like really make peace your mode of operation. It would be absolutely okay for you to really navigate at the pace of peace. You know, that's the most important thing. When we say peace is our goal, like that's not just pretty words. Like, are we in peace? Peace is my real estate. Peace is the only thing that I'm responsible for. And I don't have to defend my peace. I don't have to defend it. It just is. I get to choose it. And as I choose it and say, this is the most important thing for me, the Holy Spirit helps to bring me to people, places, and things, situations, so that I can really stay in my peace. Does that mean that I'm not going to have opportunities where people rattle my cage or situations show up? Yes, but what I know about that is that when I reach those opportunities, it actually means not that I'm being shut down, but I'm being called to grow in a bigger way. You know, that this is the point of discomfort, that I'm in my comfort zone, and now God's saying, like, can you be peace even here? And can you be love even here? And I might wait and pause and want to wrestle a little bit and maybe want to close my eyes, but eventually, with the principles of Course in Miracles and other ways that we support ourselves spiritually, we think, yeah, I can do that. Because staying in your comfort zone is very uncomfortable, actually. So don't do anything you can't do in peace. Number one. Number two, be right where you're at. Like right where you're at is exactly where you're supposed to be. And those people that are under your nose and those people whose noses you're under, like that's the perfect classroom for you right now. Can you love that? If you can take care of that real estate after you take care of this real estate, then you'll be extending love out into the world. Not looking too far on the horizon, but just let God take care of the moving of mountains. You know, the truth is God's not interested in moving mountains. You know, God's interested in helping us figure out how to get over the mountains or walk around the mountains. make peace with the mountains. And then the third one is recognize that you have everything that you need right now. If we don't recognize that, we come with this wanting. We come and with that wanting, we cause wars. Like I did in that story with Molly. I had a wanting. My wanting wasn't even based on that bracelet. My wanting was that I felt like something was being robbed from me. And so God got to show me, like, this is really what it looks like to be robbed, and this is really what it looks like when you recognize that nothing can be robbed from you. Everything happens by right of your consciousness. And that it's not just for you, but it's for everyone that you serve. Because I remember when that story first happened to me, and getting through my stepmother's death, that underneath all of that anger and vindication and wanting was just someone who was really, really sad. I was just really, really, really sad. And it came out as really, really loud anger. But really it was just sadness. So I got to kind of got to lean back and honor myself. So you have everything that you need. Nothing real can be threatened. Lay down your armor. Come open-minded, open-hearted, open-handed to this moment. Allow yourself to be that ignited light in the world. Allow yourself to experience what it truly feels like to be free. When the Course says you are not a body, this sounds crazy, but you are not a body. You are free. You are still as God created you. This body is actually just a very limited meat suit. That we have 5 very limited senses. But all that's good and beautiful and holy happens beyond the body. When you have that connection with the divine. So make the time for your connection with the divine. Make the time to experience love, even in the places of anger, even in the places of sadness, even in the places of shame, even in the illusion of separation. Like, really make the time to breathe in some love. And that will help restore your ability to be defenseless and have the opportunity to lay in that impeccable state. And that's the word.
So what do you think? I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, or you can go ahead and sign up for our newsletter at speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com so we can keep the conversation going. Because Speakeasy is all about engaging in engaging conversations. I'm Maureen Muldoon, your spiritual vixen, reminding you to love more and fear less, and don't forget to laugh. What do you say?